Hey everybody, Richie here from Rocket Chronicles, and in this video we're going to talk about test fitting. And I know you're probably thinking, really? You're doing a video about test fitting? Well, sometimes there's a little more to test fitting than meets the eye, literally. So I know a lot of times when we think of test fitting, we think of simple things like, taking this body tube here, taking this coupler tube here, and just, making sure they fit together. There's no, problems, something like that. Maybe taking, if this was the AV bay, making sure the bulkheads fit on. That's just your standard test fitting, and I think everybody understands that. But I'm going to show you in today's video something that I ran into while test fitting this kit, and it was something that if you follow the kit instructions, you might not ever notice it, and it is a problem. At least I believe it's a problem, and you'll see in the video. You can determine for yourself if you think it's a problem, and let's get right to it. So as we go down here on the mat and we look at, this is the booster section of this kit that I'm building, and it's got the fin slots already cut in. Now, if I was to build it exactly the way they're describing in their instructions, you run into a bit of a problem. However, before I even noticed the problem, I decided not to follow the instructions. What I like to do is I like to build my fin and motor tube section outside the rocket. So let's get right back here and look and see what we got. So if we were test fitting according to their instructions, we would have our airframe, booster section, whatever you want to call it. We would have the 54 millimeter motor tube here, and I don't have a ring on this end, but I have a ring on this end just for video purposes. But normally if I was doing a normal test fitting, I would have a ring here and I would have a ring here, and they would just be fitted on there. Again, it's a test fitting. There's no epoxy involved. And we would slide that in. And then I don't have a fin available because you'll see a little bit later here in the video that I have the fins in a jig right now. So I have it in, and then what I would do to test fit the fin is I would just, slide the fin through, and as long as, it goes through this slot, as long as the fin tab touches the motor tube. Now on this particular rocket, the fins go through the slot, but they also extend up the booster section here just a little bit. And as long as everything fit, and I could even do all three fins, put them in like a fin guide or tape them on just to make sure that everything fits, everything would look good. And at that point I would probably proceed on by epoxying the fore ring here, the front ring of the motor tube. Probably leave this ring just loose so that I can take it off to do my inside fillets. But I would have the motor tube in, I would, tack epoxy that fin in there, and then I would proceed to do my inside fillets as per their instructions. And I would do the fillet that's where on the inside, where the fin comes up through the fin slot. And then of course you would do those beautiful outside fillets that everybody loves to do. So here is where I decided to take a different path. And this is, again, before I found the problem. So what I like to do is I like to cut, if the camera can get it, I like to cut this out right here. Cut that out, do it on all three. This way I can build my motor tube and fin section outside of the rocket. I can do really nice fillets and get that motor, the fins to bond to the motor tube just the way I want them to. And then I can slide the whole thing in. So let's get the fin jig up here and look at what we got. Okay, so right now I have kind of a fin guide thing going on here, and I'll explain what I have. This is a longer motor tube, longer than the original one. I decided to put like a 32-inch motor tube in it because I wanted to push the performance of the rocket, and I wanted to have a longer motor tube. So this fin guide is from the manufacturer. It did not come with the kit. I purchased it separately. This fin guide is a fin guide that I made based upon this fiberglass one. So as you can see, I have my fins set up in here, and let me explain a little bit further what I got going on here. So this right here is the switch band. I'm using this to represent a piece of the airframe. Okay, I have two centering rings so that this thing is perfectly level, or parallel, I guess you should say, to the motor tube. And here is the problem that I run into. So this is how, if you were assembling it, imagine if this motor tube continued all the way down and you just stuck the fins through the slots. What you're not going to see is this right here. You're not going to see these gaps. And I don't know how good the camera can pick that up, but I'll demonstrate it. This is, just a straight edge ruler, and it has some cork on the back of it. And I can slide that underneath of there, and I can do it all the way down. I'm hoping the camera can catch this, but this gap goes all the way down to here. Now, let's look at what I'm actually showing you. I have the back of the fin, the aft section touching against the motor tube. I have the fore end of the fin touching the body tube. And I have this gap here, right? See, right here would normally be body tube. The body tube would come on down. But I have this gap, and not only do I have it there on that one fin, I have it on all three fins. And at this point, I'm kind of perplexed. So if I was to build it as per the instructions, I would definitely have a problem. And if I go ahead and build it my way, which means to, not have the airframe on there, push this down onto and epoxy it down here, well, then when I go to slide it into the airframe, these front sections of these fins are going to hit the airframe because they're going to be lower. So then I would have to, I guess theoretically, cut these fin slots even further up the airframe to allow it to slide in. But then you have a big gap where your fin is only being held on by the airframe and it's not being held on by the motor tube, if you follow all that. So in my opinion, if you were to build it as per the instructions, you're not going to see this here. You can look in from the back of the motor, or of the booster section, and you might see that your fin is touching here, but are you going to be able to see all the way down to there? And or are you even going to look for that? That's the thing that kind of perplexes me really about this whole thing. So obviously these fins are miscut. I mean, there's just no two ways about that. And I discovered this whole problem by test fitting, by doing, not an extreme test fitting, but just setting everything up, testing out, setting it in the jig just the way I would if I was going to epoxy it, and then noticing that I have a problem. Now, let's explore the problem a little bit more. So what can I do? Well, if I was to assemble it, I guess I would have to bridge this gap here with epoxy. Now, I also want to note how thick that gap is. So that is a 20 thousandths thick, just the metal part, without the cork. If I measure it with the cork and without pressing on the cork, we have about 53 thousandths on that. So if we go back and we look down here, again, the back of the fin is all the way down. Right here, I could actually slide the cork. So we got 53 thousandths there. And if I just do the metal, which was about 20, we have 20 thousandth gap all the way down, over halfway down the fin tab. So what is that going to do? If I go ahead and bridge that with epoxy, and everything is fine. You got your other fillets. You got your airframe fillets. You could probably fly this thing on a J, no problem. But the whole purpose of making this long tube and doing it this way was to push the limits, hopefully, and go for like a long K or even a long L, 54 millimeter L, and really get some altitude out of this rocket if I wanted to do that. Now, when you start pushing the limits, anybody knows that's when, if there's any imperfections in your build, even if there's not imperfections, sometimes you just push the limit too far. But say you're pushing the limit and you're pretty confident, you know, your build was good, but you didn't know that you had these gaps, and then what happens? I don't know. It's rocketry. Anything can happen. You know, fins come off. One fin comes off. Two fins come off. I doubt that all three fins would come off. Maybe none would come off. There's just the possibilities are just open. So, but if a fin comes off, it compromises the flight. And then what happens? You know, will the recovery save it? Or does the rocket come in hot because something went wrong with the recovery after the fins come off? You lose your electronics, you lose the whole rocket in a crash. I don't know. But anyway, that's today's video. Something for everyone to ponder about. I think, I don't know, I'm going to see how I'm going to proceed, and then I'll probably make a video about that. So thanks for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, come back. I'm harmless, and watch more Rocket Chronicles. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.